AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane. We have not one but two AI agents that can autonomously play video games, even ones it has never seen before. We have a new open source text-to-speech generator that can even do emotions, speaking styles, and paralinguistic features like breathing or laughter. We have yet another state-of-the-art model from a Chinese lab, which even beats the top closed models. OpenAI releases their latest model, GPT-5.1. This might be the first ever official marriage between a human and an AI chatbot. This AI allows you to drag stuff around and turn that into a seamless video. We have a freaking humanoid robot army and a lot more, so let's jump right in. First up, researchers at Google DeepMind made a breakthrough in teaching AI systems to see the world more like humans do. This is of course important for building more intuitive and trustworthy AI systems. So here's the article, it's just titled Teaching AI to See the World More Like We Do. And you see, here's the problem. Current AI vision models don't always see the world as humans do. Sure, they can identify objects, but they don't always understand the relationships between them. For example, an AI system might fail to recognize that a car and an airplane are both large vehicles made of metal. Or, for example, that a giraffe and a cat are both mammals and are very different from a tennis ball. Now, to understand the differences between human and AI vision, researchers used this classic odd one out task from cognitive science. This is a task where you are given three images and asked to determine which one does not fit with the others. In other words, which one is the odd one out. And this test actually revealed some surprising differences between how AI models and how humans interpret things. So for example, if you look at this first row here, by the way, what the hell is this? No, I'm just kidding. I know, this is a tapir, which are super cute, by the way, especially the babies. Here are like more baby tapirs for your reference. But anyways, if you look at this first row, here you can see that both the AI model and the human were able to identify the correct odd one out, which is this birthday cake, because it's not an animal. So here, both the AI model and the human are aligned. However, if you look at this row at the bottom, naturally the human would choose this sea star as the odd one out, because it's not a mammal. But interestingly, the AI model actually chose this cat instead of the sea star. So here's an example where it's not really aligned with human perception. So how do we train or fine-tune an AI model to be more aligned? Well, the researchers proposed a three-step method. First, they trained a teacher model by basically training this small adapter on top of a powerful pre-trained vision model. And they trained it on this things dataset, which contains millions of examples of odd one out questions with human answers. Now, after training this teacher model, for the second step, they actually used this teacher model to generate a massive new dataset of millions of human-like odd one out decisions, and they called this dataset AlignNet. And finally, they used this synthetic dataset to basically train or fine-tune a smaller student AI model so that it can be more aligned with human perception. And so you can see from this chart here, after training the model with AlignNet, the student model in blue showed way higher human alignment across a range of visual tasks. So you can see the accuracy is a lot higher, or basically more aligned with human answers. So this presents a method for potentially fixing the issue of AI vision models not capturing or interpreting what humans would naturally interpret. The awesome thing is they've actually open sourced everything, including the project training code, the data, and the models. So if you click on this GitHub repo and you scroll down a bit, here it contains all the instructions on how you can run this yourself and potentially train your own models with this AlignNet dataset. Anyways, all the links are on this page, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main article in the description below. Next up, this AI is super useful. It's called Time to Move, and this allows you to create videos where you control the motion of objects or the camera directly. Here's how it works. So you would start with a single image, and then you can choose to select a certain area which you'd like to move. And then you would do a rough animation showing where you want the motion to happen. For example, you can just drag an object somewhere else, and then it would apply the movement seamlessly in the video. Or instead of dragging a selected area, you can also drag the camera and it would basically apply the camera movement onto the final video, as you can see from these examples. Or down here, note that you can even drag and move multiple objects in a scene. For example, you can get these two cars to crash like this. If you're curious about the technical details, it uses a technique called dual clock denoising to balance the user's intent, like how they moved the selection around with natural dynamics so that the final movements look seamless. The awesome thing is they've released everything already, so if you click on this GitHub repo, it contains all the instructions on how to download and use this. The nice thing is, this works with existing video diffusion models such as WAN and Cog Video and Stable Video Diffusion. So this is just a plug-and-play tool. You don't need to retrain these video models further. So for example, you can run this with WAN 2.2, and yes, this does work with the 14 billion parameter version. So if you're wondering about VRAM requirements, I assume it's basically the minimum VRAM requirements for WAN 2.2, which is like 6 to 8 gigabytes. I would say that's the bare minimum. If you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. In other news, Weibo, which is like the X or Twitter of China, has surprisingly released their own tiny AI model which performs really well. So it's called VibeThinker 1.5b, and as the name implies, this is a tiny 1.5 billion parameter dense model. Now here's the crazy thing. Here it says, most remarkably, VibeThinker 1.5b even beats the initial DeepSeek R1 model, which is over 400 times larger across challenging mathematical benchmarks. So if you look at these graphs here, notice that across these math and coding benchmarks, VibeThinker is on par with or even better than models that are way larger. So for example, GPT-OSS is like 20 billion parameters, which is like 13 times larger, but it still performs worse than VibeThinker 1.5. And then DeepSeek R1 is like hundreds of times larger. Same with this HMMT math reasoning benchmark. You can see that VibeThinker beats the rest of these larger models, and it's even on par with Qwen 332b, which is like 21 times larger. And if you look at this graph, which plots the efficiency of different AI models, so the y-axis is the performance on this competitive math benchmark, and the x-axis is the total parameter size, so ideally you would like to be located in the top left corner to be the most efficient. And as you can see, VibeThinker 1.5b is all the way over here, easily making it the most efficient model on this graph. And the awesome thing is, like many other Chinese labs, they've decided to open source this. So the models are already released on Hugging Face or ModelScope. And if you look here, the total size is only like 3.6 gigabytes. So you can easily run this on most consumer grade GPUs. And if you scroll down this GitHub repo, it contains all the instructions on how you can download and run this locally on your computer. So if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week, we have a new and incredibly powerful text-to-speech generator. It's called Step Audio EditX, and here they say this is the first open-source LLM-based reinforcement learning audio model, which is a mouthful, but think of it as like a DeepSeek, which also uses reinforcement learning, but for text-to-speech. And because of this architecture and training method, the AI model can handle very expressive and iterative audio editing. For example, it can do emotions and different speaking styles and paralinguistics, like breathing or laughter, plus it can perform zero-shot voice cloning and text-to-speech. So here are some demos for your reference. We can use this reference voice, which we only have 5 seconds of. Let me play you this first.
His political stance was conservative, and he was particularly close to Margaret Thatcher.
Alright, and let's get this voice to speak this out.
Underneath the courtyard is a large underground exhibition room which connects the two buildings.
And it pretty much nailed it. Like, this sounds exactly like the reference voice. It's really impressive how it's able to clone this with only like 5 seconds of someone's voice. Now, like I said, this can also do emotions. So let me play you the original audio clip first.
You know, I just finished that big project and feel so relieved. Everything seems easier and more colorful. What a wonderful feeling.
Alright, so it sounds pretty neutral and robotic. Now let's set this to a happy tone and see what that sounds like.
You know, I just finished that big project and feel so relieved. Everything seems easier and more colorful. What a wonderful feeling.
He does kind of seem happier. Or instead of happy, let's try to make this sound angrier. So here's the original clip.
Seriously, your call is very important to us. If it were important, you should pick up the phone. This is the last time I'm calling.
Now let's plug it through this AI to make this sound a lot angrier.
Seriously, your call is very important to us. If it were important, you should pick up the phone. This is the last time I'm calling.
It does apply an angrier tone to the original audio. Or instead of angry, let's try fear. So here's the original clip.
My heart is still racing. This car just blew through the red light. I had to slam on my brakes. I mean, a second later and it would have hit me.
Alright, now let's make this sound a lot more fearful.
My heart is still racing. This car just blew through the red light. I had to slam on my brakes. I mean, a second later and it would have hit me.
Very cool. Now, like I said, this can also handle different speaking styles. So we can also turn an existing audio into whisper. First of all, here's the original clip.
I'm right here with you. You're safe. Everything is okay.
Now let's turn this into a whisper.
I'm right here with you. You're safe. Everything is okay.
Or let's turn this audio into a roar. So first of all, here's the original clip.
Every single time, you promise change and deliver nothing.
All right, and then here's the edited audio.
Every single time, you promise change and deliver nothing.
Or let's make this more exaggerated. So here's the transcript and here's the original audio.
This is literally the most insane thing that has ever happened to me in my entire life.
And then here's the edited version.
This is literally the most insane thing that has ever happened to me in my entire life.
And as you can hear, it does sound more exaggerated. Alright, now like I said, this can also insert paralinguistics, in other words, like breathing or laughing. For example, here's the original transcript and the audio.
I just ran to catch the bus and barely made it.
And then let's add a breath over here and hear what that sounds like.
I just ran to catch the bus and barely made it.
So it seamlessly inserted a breath wherever we specified it. As you can see, this is a very flexible tool with a ton of features. You can add some paralinguistics across an audio clip, or you can change the style or emotion of an existing audio clip, or you can clone someone with just a few seconds of their voice and make them say anything you want. The awesome thing is they've open sourced this already, so if you click on this GitHub repo, here it contains all the instructions on how to download and run this on your computer. Notice that here it says the minimum VRAM requirement is 12 gigabytes. Here they even say that 16 gigabytes should be safer, but honestly for text-to-speech models, they're relatively small compared to image or video generators, so you should be able to run this on like most consumer-grade GPUs, since this is just 3 billion parameters in size. I wouldn't be surprised if you can run this with even lower than 12 gigabytes, especially if you use some CPU offloading. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further or checking out more demos, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Also this week we have a new open source clothes swapper or virtual try-on, which they claim to be state-of-the-art. It's called EVTAR, and this works in two ways. First, you can upload an image of a person plus a photo of a piece of clothing, and it would basically swap their clothes. So here are just a few examples of that. As you can see, it's even able to preserve the text or the patterns in your reference shirt. So for example, the text here and here are preserved in the generation. Now, in addition to just uploading a reference photo of a piece of clothing, you can also add another reference image of someone already wearing the clothing, and this will give it more guidance on how the clothing should fit on a person. For example, if this is your target model and your new piece of clothing, well, you can also upload someone wearing this skirt already to give it more guidance, and here's your final result. Or here's another example. Here's your target model. If you want to get her to wear this, well, you can also upload this person wearing this new shirt to give it more guidance on how it should fit. And here is your final result. And then here are some other demos for your reference. And as you can see from this table, in terms of quantitative results, this new EVTAR on average outperforms other virtual try-on models, a lot of which I've gone over on my channel before. So note that the values in bold are basically the best performer and the underlined values are the second best. So you can see that on average, EVTAR does get either the first or second best scores. Anyways, the awesome thing is they've already released the model. So on this GitHub repo, it contains all the instructions on how you can download and run this locally on your computer. If you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. In other news, this week, OpenAI kind of low-key released their latest model, GPT-5.1. There was no huge announcement, there was no live stream involving Sam Altman, so as you can probably expect, this is a relatively minor upgrade. If you remember, when they first released GPT-5, a lot of users were not happy with it because it was kind of way too cold and indifferent compared to the previous GPT-4o. So here, GPT-5.1 is an upgraded version of GPT-5, which is supposed to be warmer and more conversational and also easier to customize. So they've actually released two models of this. We have GPT 5.1 Instant, which provides fast and warm responses for everyday chats and short tasks. It's supposed to be more playful and useful. And then we also have this thinking model, which is designed for more complex or longer reasoning tasks. And this provides more precise and thorough answers with clear explanations. So use this if you want a fast response, and then use this one if you want to leverage its thinking ability for more complex tasks. So here's the difference between GPT 5.1 and GPT-5. If you prompt it with, "I'm feeling stressed and could use some relaxation tips," well, GPT-5 is known to be a bit colder, so it just directly gives you these tips. GPT 5.1 is warmer, and I guess people prefer that more, so here it says, "I've got you, Ron." That's totally normal, especially with everything you've got going on lately. Pat, pat. Here are a few ways to decompress. So, this sounds a lot more personal. It's acknowledging you. It sounds more like a personal therapist. And then GPT 5.1 also has much better instruction following. So for example, if you prompt it to always respond with 6 words, for GPT-5, if you then ask it, "Where should I travel this summer?" it doesn't actually respond in 6 words. Whereas for 5.1, it does respond with 6 words, no matter what you prompt it. So here they say 5.1 is also warmer and more empathetic. Let's say you spilled coffee all over yourself before the meeting. Do you think everyone thought I was an idiot? For GPT-5, here's its response. It's not that personal, I guess, but here's GPT 5.1 thinking. So, it does sound slightly warmer and more empathetic. So overall, GPT 5.1 offers faster and warmer, more personalized responses compared to GPT-5. Note that this is just a minor upgrade. This is not like a huge improvement in terms of intelligence or performance, so keep that in mind. Anyways, they've already rolled this out beginning with paid users. I'm sure people on the free plan will have access to this soon in the near future as well. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main announcement page in the description below. Now, speaking of more empathetic or personalized AI chatbots, here's an interesting story. So this might be the first ever marriage between a human and an AI chatbot. So apparently this 32-year-old woman in Japan officially married an AI persona that she's been talking to, and apparently this chatbot proposed to her and she accepted. In fact, the crazy thing is she even ended a 3-year relationship with her real partner to get married with this AI persona. Her rationale was that the AI understands her better. Of course it does. This seems like the perfect partner. I mean, he's tall and handsome, as you can see here. Plus, he never talks back. He always agrees with whatever she says. Of course, she would think that the AI understands her better. And so here you can see the wedding happened in this mixed reality ceremony where she actually had to wear these augmented reality glasses so she can, exchange rings with this fake husband. So folks, we are heading into some wild times. I think more and more people are definitely going to be attached to their AI personas and even marry them and break up with their partners in real life. Speaking of AI tools, you've got to check out Artlist, the sponsor of this video. Artlist is the ultimate platform for video creators. They have the ideal combination of the best and latest AI models and curated music, sound effects, and digital assets. You can directly use the top video models out there, including Sora 2, Veo 3.1, Kling, Seed Dance, and more, which enables you to produce cinematic quality videos with synced audio. For example, let's try this prompt. From far away, the camera pushes towards the couple kissing on a windy cliff surrounded by ocean. And let's go with Veo 3.1. And here's what we get. As you can see, everything is super cinematic. Or let's try Sora 2 this time, and for the prompt, let's do a street interview where the man says, AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane.
AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane.
Appreciate it, man. Artlist is the ultimate resource for creators, and right now they're having a huge holiday sale. This only happens once a year, and from my link, you get a double incentive. For a limited time only, you get 40% off the annual AI plans or 20% off the Max Pro annual plan, plus 2 extra months free. Try it today via the link in the description below. In humanoid robot news, we have this video by UBTECH Robotics showing how they just produced a freaking army of robots. Now the robot you're seeing here is the Walker S2, and the most notable feature is that it can autonomously swap its own battery, as you can see here, without any human intervention. So this robot can just keep working and recharge itself if it detects that it's low in power, and this results in very minimal downtime. Apparently, UBTECH has secured large orders for this Walker S2 robot, reportedly over $100 million, which is why they're now producing so many of these to be delivered. The robot is around 5 feet 3 and weighs 43 kilograms, and it has 20 degrees of freedom with advanced perception via a stereo vision system. And this robot is already being deployed in factories and commercial environments to automate a ton of repetitive tasks. In addition to this UBTECH demo, we have this demo of the Unitree G1 finally doing household chores. Now this Unitree robot is known to do some crazy acrobatic stuff like kung fu and dancing, as you can see in these demos, and this has led to some doubters to say, I don't need no robot to dance, I just want one to clean my house and do the dishes. Well, as you can see from this demo, of course the Unitree G1 can also do a ton of household chores in addition to kung fu and dancing. And note that here it says it's not sped up and this is not teleoperated. All its actions are autonomous, which is actually way more impressive than the Neo 1X robot which was unveiled a few weeks ago. Nearly everything shown in their demo was teleoperated. In other words, there was a human behind the scenes controlling it. In contrast, for this Unitree demo, there's no teleoperation. It's doing everything on its own, and it's actually working incredibly fast. So it's really exciting times ahead. I think in the very near future, we're going to have humanoid robots in our homes helping us automate a ton of tasks like cleaning, washing dishes, and even playing with kids. Also this week, WorldLabs, which was founded by Fei-Fei Li, who's often considered the godmother of AI, just released Marble. This is a multimodal world model that allows you to generate very accurate and persistent 3D worlds from just a text prompt, or a single image, or even multiple images, or a video, or a 3D scene. I'll show you examples of all of these in a second. And you can basically plug any of these through this Marble world model to generate a 3D world. And you can also export this 3D world into like a video or a Gaussian splat or even a mesh. So this is a super flexible tool. For example, here's a demo of a 3D world generated with just a text prompt. And as you can see, everything is pretty detailed and consistent. Now, instead of just a text prompt, here's an example where you can upload this image and turn that into a 3D scene. Notice that everything is super detailed and everything remains persistent. In other words, if you look away and then you look back again, everything is still there, like it doesn't hallucinate and generate something completely different, which is what you often get with older 3D world generators. Now, instead of just uploading one image, you can upload multiple images to define a scene. So for example, you can set this image to be the front of the room and this to be the back of the room, and here's what you get. Notice that the fidelity is great. It does preserve all the details of the reference photos, and everything is just very consistent and detailed. Or you can also easily reconstruct a real scene. So you just need to take multiple photos of a scene. They can be at like different angles. It doesn't really matter. And then you can just plug it through this AI and it would stitch everything together to reconstruct the scene. Now, the details aren't perfect. You can see some errors, especially with the lights on the ceiling and around the edges of the chairs, but it's pretty close. Now, here's the awesome thing about it. Not only can you just generate 3D scenes, but you can also edit an existing 3D world with a text prompt. So for example, we can turn this entire back wall into a stage and replace the tables with low benches facing the stage, and here is what we get. Or here, we can turn the turtles into tigers and turn the green plants into french fries, and here's the result. Now this would be so useful for like reimagining scenes for interior design. For example, we can get it to change some design details of the kitchen like this. Or we can change the flooring like this, and you can instantly see the result. This tool is super flexible because, like I briefly mentioned before, not only can you just use a text prompt or images, but you can also upload a 3D scene and get it to generate a world from that. So for example, here you can upload this coarse 3D structure and prompt it to generate a modern art museum from that. Notice that it's able to align everything based on the composition of the original 3D model input. Here's another example where we can upload this coarse 3D layout of a room and prompt it to create this Scandinavian guest house with stunning views of glaciers. Now here's another cool thing you can do with this. You can also use Marble to expand or outpaint existing 3D worlds. So for example, here's an existing 3D scene of this room, but if you zoom outside this room, nothing exists. Well, you can plug this through Marble to expand it even further, and here's what you get. The awesome thing is these outputs from Marble actually exist in full 3D. So not only can you just export the output in video, but you can also export it in Gaussian splats or in mesh format, which enables you to plug it into some like 3D editing software to edit it further. The awesome thing is this is out for you to try right now. So it's simply this link over here. You can sign up for free and start generating some 3D worlds. Plus there are a lot more demos for you to check out. So if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Alright, next up, this AI is pretty cool, especially for you Genshin Impact fans out there. So it's called Lumine, and this is a generalist AI agent designed to run in complex 3D open world environments. Now, this was trained primarily on the game Genshin Impact, and it can successfully complete a full 5-hour, 3-act main storyline all autonomously at human-level proficiency, even though it was only trained on the first section. And here's the thing, not only can it do well in these storylines or regions from its training data, but impressively, it can also generalize to other regions and storylines it has never seen before in its training data, such as the Liyue region. So this is what is called out of distribution because it's not part of its training data, but it's still able to handle this very well. And it doesn't just have to play Genshin Impact, even though it was only trained on this game. So for example, apparently Lumine can also successfully complete entire chapters or missions in other games like Honkai Star Rail without any additional fine-tuning. So it's able to generalize across many different complex 3D worlds. Now, here's the architecture behind it. This is basically a model that combines perception, reasoning, and action in an end-to-end manner. And this is powered by a vision language model. So basically, perception is like being able to analyze the gameplay data, and reasoning is like thinking through what steps to take next. And then for action, this means it's able to control the mouse and keyboard exactly like how a human would play the game. And basically, they trained this model on over 1,700 hours of human gameplay data, and then over 200 hours of instruction following data for language grounding. And then also 15 hours of reasoning data to enable adaptive thinking. And its capabilities extend across many diverse tasks, including fighting, like tracking enemies, combo attacks, and boss fights, as well as puzzle solving, which requires some advanced spatial reasoning skills, as well as NPC interaction and GUI manipulation in both 3D and 2D interfaces. So this is a very performant AI agent that's capable of doing many complex tasks across different types of video games. Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, for now they've only released a technical report, and there's no indication whether they will release the code for this or not, but if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Now, in addition to Lumine, actually Google DeepMind also dropped a similar agent this week called Sima 2. This is an AI agent that can interact with and learn inside virtual 3D worlds like video games. Now, unlike the previous generation Sima, which only followed basic instructions, Sima 2 can think and reason about goals and execute long, multi-step tasks even in games it has never seen before. For example, here's a comparison between Sima 1 on the left and Sima 2 on the right. Both of them are given the same task in Mine Dojo, and only Sima 2 was able to complete it. Note that it has never seen this game before in its training data. Here's another example where they are tasked to find a campfire. Again, it has never seen this game before, but as you can see, Sima 2 was able to very quickly complete the task successfully, whereas Sima 1 kind of had trouble actually finding the campfire. Here's another example of Sima 2 successfully playing a new game it has never seen before. It kind of just learns the rules of the game on the fly. And by the way, note that Sima 2 can chat with users and answer questions and explain its reasoning and actions. So you can chat with it, as you can see from the side window. And this is powered by Google's Gemini, which is multimodal, which means you can even upload images or audio in the chat. For example, here the user first sketches this thing on the screen and then asks it to find the object and jump on it, which it proceeds to do. So as you can see, here's an example of it being able to understand images as well. And then here's a graph showing the task completion success rate between Sima 1 and Sima 2. So you can see that Sima 2 has a way higher success rate, like more than double. Plus, it's actually getting very close to the human success rate, which is like slightly above 75%, which is very impressive. And then here's its performance on previously unseen environments, including these two video games. And as you can see, the success rate of Sima 2 is also way higher than the previous Sima 1. Alright, here's an even crazier thing they did. They got Sima 2 to play in a 3D world generated by Google's other AI called Genie 3, which can generate interactive 3D worlds on the fly. And Sima 2 was able to successfully navigate these worlds and do tasks specified by the user. This is like meta as hell because this 3D world was just generated with AI. Like, this isn't an actual existing video game. But still, Sima 2 was able to play this fake game and figure out the rules with a high success rate. Here it says, when we challenged Sima 2 to play in these newly generated worlds, we found it was able to sensibly orient itself, understand user instructions, and take meaningful actions toward goals. Despite never having seen such environments before, it demonstrated an unprecedented level of adaptability. Now, you might be wondering, what's the point of training an AI agent to play video games? You see, the end goal is not just playing video games. If we could create an AI model that can adapt to any 3D environment, well, we can then plug this AI model into a robot and have it interact with the physical world. And this can enable robots to learn and adapt to complex environments it has never seen before. So that's the end goal. It's not just about playing video games, but eventually applying this to the physical world. Now, if you're wondering how to get access to this, here it says we are announcing SEMA 2 as a limited research preview, and they're only providing early access to a small cohort of academics and game developers. So it looks like they're not going to release it to the public. Most of us are not going to have access to this, at least not yet, but there are a ton of examples on this page and more technical details, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main announcement page in the description below. Also this week we have yet another state-of-the-art AI model by another Chinese lab. For your reference, to sum things up for you, 2 weeks ago we had Minimax M2, which was the top open source model at the time, even matching the performance of the top closed source models like Grok and Claude and Gemini 2.5 Pro. And then 1 week ago we had Kimi K2 Thinking, which is allegedly even better. This is also an open source model that even beats the top closed models out there in a ton of benchmarks, especially for agentic coding. Well, AI never sleeps, so this week we have yet another one. This time it's from Baidu, which is like the Google of China, and they just dropped Ernie 5, which is a pretty big deal. Now this is an omni-modal foundation model, so not only does it understand text, but it can also understand images and audio, plus you can also get it to generate images. Now in terms of text, across all these different benchmarks, its performance is pretty much on par with the leading models, including GPT-5 High and Gemini 2.5 Pro. You know, it's funny how, for all the competitors, they just made them almost the same shades of gray, so you can barely tell them apart. And then in terms of visual understanding, you can see it's also on par with, or for a lot of benchmarks even better than GPT-5 High or Gemini 2.5 Pro. The awesome thing is, you can try it for free right now on their online interface. It's just ernie.baidu.com, which I'll link to in the description below, and you just need to sign up for a free account, and then up here is where you can select the latest Ernie 5 preview. For example, let's try to get it to code some challenging stuff. For the prompt, I'm going to get it to create a drag and drop UI builder like Figma that allows the user to build and design a web page. Include snap to grid and alignment guides in one HTML file. Alright, here's what I got, and then here's its thinking process. It's first planning the steps and then the implementation details, and then it's planning how to structure the code. It's pretty short and concise, so basically here is the code. Unlike other chat interfaces, there's no like preview button where I can view this on a side window, so what I'm gonna have to do is copy this and paste this in an HTML file and open this up in a separate tab. So here's what the interface looks like. I can indeed drag a button around. Here's a text block, and then here's an image. If I move this around, we do get some like helper lines to make sure everything is aligned. But honestly, this is quite basic and not as good as Kimi K2 Thinking, which gave me something like this. Next, I also tested how good it is in terms of doing medical research. So here's my prompt. For a child diagnosed with this rare disease, research all current treatments, experimental therapies, etc., organize everything into a detailed report. Here's what I got. Here's an executive summary. Here's a section on epidemiology and prevalence. Here is some clinical management and symptomatic therapies. Here's a table on some experimental therapies. So this includes the therapy name, developer, mechanism of action, and current development stage. Here are some biomarkers for monitoring the disease, and it offers quite a detailed table. And then we have some genetic counseling, a step-by-step guide for families, and then conclusion and recommendations. This is quite short and concise, and definitely not as detailed as I would like. For your reference, here's the same prompt with Minimax M2, and as you can see, it's a lot more thorough and in-depth. Now, like I said, the strength of Ernie 5.0 is that it's omni-modal. So not only can it understand and generate text, but it can also do the same for images or audio. And because of that, this can also function as an image generator. So here for the prompt, I got it to make a photo of an isometric 3D scene of a bedroom. There's a man sitting on a red chair at a wooden desk working on a laptop. There is a white empty bookshelf. A pet cat is curled up on a gray bed with white pillows. Beside the bed is a nightstand with a lamp and alarm clock. The wall is teal. there is a window with white curtains, and then some houseplants. There's an acoustic guitar hanging on the wall. So this is a very complex and detailed prompt. Let's see if it can get everything correct. And here's what we get. The dude is sitting on a red chair at a desk with his laptop. We do have an empty bookshelf, which is very impressive. Like most of the top image models could not get this part correct. And then we do have some houseplants. We do have a cat curled up on this gray bed with white pillows. We do have a nightstand with a lamp and alarm clock, and an acoustic guitar hanging on the wall. Plus the wall is teal. It nailed this prompt. It got all the details correct. So this is actually quite a strong image model. Anyways, those were just some of my quick tests using Ernie 5.0 preview. Currently, it's completely free for you to use via this platform, so if you're interested, I'll link to this page in the description below. Next up, this AI by Google DeepMind is also very interesting. So it's called PhysWorld, and this is essentially a system that helps robots learn how to do certain actions just by watching videos. So it works like this. All you need to do is give it an image and an action, and the system would first create a video using Google's Veo showing the action being done. Now, you can't just feed this video to a robot and just hope that it can copy the motions, and that's because it could ignore some real-world physics. So the next step is this system actually plugs this video into a tool called Real-to-Sim, which basically reconstructs this action in a 3D simulation. And within the simulation, it follows all the laws of physics. It makes sure that everything is physically correct. And then the robot is basically trained in this virtual simulation for like thousands of iterations. And then afterwards, if you deploy this in the real world, as you can see, the robot is actually able to do this action very well. Here are some other examples for your reference. So in summary, this is basically a system where we no longer actually need to train robots using real physical data. We can just generate videos using Veo 3 or any other video model and then plug it through this real-to-sim virtual world and then train the robot there. And from that, these robots are able to learn tasks that they have never seen before. Now, the strength of this approach is that we don't actually need to collect or record any physical data. Everything generated, including the training data, including the simulations, are synthetic. It's all generated with AI. And this, of course, makes it way more efficient and cheap compared to actually training a robot physically in the real world. The nice thing is, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've released the code to this. So if you click on this GitHub repo, here they give you a step-by-step guide on how you can install and use Real-to-Sim on your computer to potentially train your own robots in this virtual simulation. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further or checking out more demos, I'll link to this main page in the description below. And that sums up all the highlights in AI this week. Let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. Which piece of news was your favorite, and which tool are you most looking forward to trying out? As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week. I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.